integral view, integral perspective can only arise in that finality of that realization. That even that, what always was considered to be as limited, bound, temporal, quirky, so impermanent, so what have you, is nothing other than the expression of the divine for the sake of its playful sport. It brings about a great relief, and the example given by Abhinavagupta of that realization is that of a relief experienced when we put a heavy load that we were somehow carrying down. It given that somatic flavor to it. It's like literally you carry something on your shoulders and then you finally put it down and there's this relief.
Throughout our experience in life, these different phases growing up, they conceal the previous one, but there's this string of awareness which is constant and which is never changing, which is indeed clearly acknowledged. However, when I sense into this stream of awareness which has been never changing throughout life, there does seem to be a particular suchness to that I-ness. So, in other words, you have also spoken of the soul being dressed in a certain way. So what I'm sensing into is that besides being an individual and a person, which we gradually disidentify from, there seems to be also some coloredness to this Jiva, not to this Geert or this Tomadatta. But when I look into this constancy indeed of this sense of identity, I mean the I-ness behind the individual person, that there is a certain flavor to that. So I'm wondering if I'm imagining that to some extent, or indeed there is, that jivas have their own flavor, which is not the flavor of Shiva.
No, nobody has flavor of their own. No. Let's just use maybe this very well-known example of mountain, no mountain, mountain. Zen, right? Seeing the mountain disappeared, not seeing the mountain again. Just compacted into these three perceptual capacity when it comes to the reality of seeing. Seeing the mountain, right, in the ignorance, that's what this exemplify. One sees the mountain and takes it for the mountain. That's what it is, seeing the mountain. Then something happens, there's a shift in perception. The mountain disappears. One instead is in the possession of one's consciousness, so everything is colored by that experience, so therefore there's no mountain. There's nothing other than that what this realization, this shift in perception. So therefore the world goes with that. And then seeing the mountain again, because that's the integration. If we are only arrested at the level of not seeing the mountain, as a lot of people do, then we are arrested at that level. And this is a grandiose, massive spiritual bypassing. So seeing the mountain again is what integration here exemplifies. So disidentifying from a temporarily, let's say, manifesting as someone, it's that no mountain phase. But it is by out of necessity, needs to be accompanied by integration and great understanding that there is mountain, and seeing the mountain again. In Zen, this is deliberately relaxed and a lot of room left for imagination, because that's also pertinent to that tradition. But if we are to use this analogy and give it this more scrupulous analysis of this predicament, or what supposes or presents itself as a potential dilemma, then there is no such thing as any agency or agent outside of one and only awareness. Therefore, everything is Shiva, and there is no such thing as Jiva in its own agency. So even that, what is considered to be, what you consider yourself, any one of us consider ourselves, is nothing other than Shiva. So in other words, there is no such thing as something is not Shiva than to become Shiva again. This is a misunderstanding. This is what first step equals last step. And first step equals last step doesn't have step in between. It doesn't even have half step. It's a one step. One step, complete and utter one step. And this is, of course, for some, let's say more blessed ones, because it presents itself. And in the process of that, they may be and they are. Therefore, we speak from the place of direct experiencing it directly. Therefore, we have certainty in relating that. There is this realization, complete realization, that nothing here has autonomy of its own, and everything is divine throughout. Everything is cosmic throughout. And that is not just in one and not in the other person. From the Advaita Tantric point of view, there is no such thing as saints and villains. The ultimate understanding reconciles it all. But of course, it poses problematic repercussions if these discourses are given to half understandings, where it can be misused. And therefore, Tantra, for that reason, just as any field of formidable knowledge, was always guarded so as to avoid. So therefore, as soon as we detect that this could be misused in creating the justification for psychological acts coming out of certain, let's say, not fully processed, not fully metabolized, not fully integrated at the level of respective, let's say, circumstantial setup at any given age, particularly in the day and age we live now, then of course we need to make sure that we do not exalt the highest teaching only, because this can backfire. Someone can do harm to themselves and to others. If I give you an example, in the real world, so to speak, right? In the world, historical example, Albert Einstein's greatest regret was contributing to the development of nuclear bomb. He never recovered. His whole religiosity was a response to that. It was a deep psychological trauma from which he has never recovered, if we are to believe his autobiographical accounts. Jyotishi astrologers, of course, explained it because this was the time when he entered Rahu period. And with his individual chart, at that time when he received that invitation, the temptation was stronger than common sense, so to speak. The temptation to embark on this project outweigh any ethical considerations of knowing very well that humanity will not use this for peaceful means, certainly not in the given settings that he invited to work on the project. And when he saw that happened, when he saw the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when he saw that this was simply tested, this caused him a tremendous suffering. So this is an example also, right? And do with it whatever you want, interpret it in your own way, because it's also very helpful. One can begin to argue and justify that, but hang on a second, there's no Einstein, it's only Shiva. It's all done by virtue of Shiva, it's all Shiva's doing. Ultimately, without a doubt, absolutely. But imagine the world where we bring the highest teaching into the valley of life from the peak, straight into the valley of life, which is ruled by different laws. It's a recipe for disaster. And we already live in time when truth is turned into untruth and being presented as truth. And this is a reality of today's situation. So therefore, we still work with that, this dance, this I am and I'm not. There has to be this immediate acknowledgement, acceptance, ideally accompanied with great sense of humbleness. This is where the role of devotion is so important. The place of devotion. So that we don't just jump into this conclusion making. Everything is Brahman or everything is Shiva. I am Shiva, therefore there's nothing in me that is not divine. All fantastic, all nice and dandy. It's like this is it. No, in the realized, there's this constant like there's nothing in me that is mine. I am nothing other than that what you are. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. I am Shiva. Drunk on that, ecstasy on that, coming when inevitably the mundane consciousness takes over, there's this humility that Shiva, right, or the humility of that what exemplified here by Godhead, by ultimate reality. I'm your humble servant. Please do not forsake me. I don't exist, only you exist, but please don't forsake me. These are the expressive dialogue that goes on still. This is what I call the dance. The realization is there, but it's not taken for granted. It's not capitalized on, okay, all right. All this means no realization took place. Really. The true understanding is accompanied by the unfathomable nature of how could that be? How could the ocean be arrested in a drop? How can there be this power that the whole entirety of the ocean is arrested in a drop? So therefore, this example of mountain, no mountain, mountain again. You see, in the integral view, integral perspective can only arise in that finality of that realization. That even that, what always was considered to be as limited, bound, temporal, quirky, so impermanent, so what have you, is nothing other than the expression of the divine for the sake of its playful sport. It brings about a great relief, and the example given by Abhinavagupta of that realization is that of a relief experienced when we put a heavy load that we were somehow carrying down. It given that somatic flavor to it. It's like literally you carry something on your shoulders and then you finally put it down, and there's this relief, release. So he gives that realization has that flavor, that quality. One is not burdened anymore. One is not burdened by that what was all simply somehow, one way or another, misperception. There's misperception in the first seeing the mountain, and there is no full perception or cognition in the second seeing no mountain anymore. The fullness come again back in fully only in seeing the mountain again. Seeing everything again as new. Seeing everything again as it is, for what it is. So no flavor, no personal flavor. All flavors belong to the one and the only.